Look at all that money, man.
This is $1 billion. If you used only $1 bills, you could create a cube of cash that is 34 feet high. Clearly, well, it's a lot of money. But as of 2025, there are 3,028 individuals who have a pile of their very own. That's 1,200 more than there were 10 years ago, and 247 more than just last year. And many members of this club are worth tens, if not hundreds of billions. In fact, the two richest men together are worth nearly $1 trillion. But Elon Musk still holds the record for the biggest individual pile of US dollars with a staggering $486 billion in December of 2024. That's more than the GDP of his country of origin, South Africa, a nation of over 64 million people. Surely no one's ever been this rich before, right? Well, I question how accurate that dollar value really is. I'm sure you've noticed the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. Thanks to inflation, a dollar today is worth just 75% of what it was just 10 years ago.
This video is amazing.
It's only worth 10% of a dollar from 1970.
My heart is sinking.
And only 3% of a dollar from 1913.
It's a big drop.
So while this guy may end up being the world's first trillionaire, does that really mean he's the wealthiest person?
Notice how Elon Musk is used to the drop. If you know about Tesla, you know it's very volatile, so drops doesn't mean a thing.
Of all time? And if he's not, then who is?
Yeah, I believe there are secret billionaires or trillionaires that they're just not public.
Well, I don't know who the wealthiest person of all time is just yet, but I do know who it isn't. Statistically, you.
Come on, you done us dirty. Come on, man.
Here in the United States, the median net worth, which is just the value of everything you own minus everything you owe, is about $192,700 per person. Compared to what we saw before, well, it's not great. But on the global stage, I think we're actually doing pretty well. Look at that. But not as well as the top 1% of earners worldwide. These are individuals with a net worth of $1 million. That's over 5 times that of the median American.
That's a bed.
And if you want to get into that top 0.1%, well, that's going to take some serious money. About $20 million. And if we continue to shrink down that percentage, we start to get to rich and famous celebrities. Take, for example, Robert Downey Jr. He's famous for playing a character whose superpower is being rich.
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Well, he must be a method actor because he's worth an astonishing $300 million. Look at that.
Okay, we're starting to get up there.
And that's just right now. Because over the next 2 Avengers movies, he'll reportedly add another $80 million to that stack o' cash. But this poor pauper shivers in the...
Well, let's go back. This really starts to paint the perspective. You really start to see, wow, like there are tons of people making money out there. Don't forget, a lot of this are tied into stocks and shares and bonds and all of that
$1 billion to that stack o' cash. But this poor pauper shivers in the shadows of one of the most famous people in the world, Kim Kardashian, who entered rarefied air in 2021 when she cracked that sweet Billy. And it hasn't stopped, because today she's worth about $1.7 billion. Now we're really starting to see the difference between the haves and the have-yachts. And just like that, we're back in the land of the billionaires. These mythical creatures are the top 0.00004% of the human population. But even they have a top 1%, the 30 richest people in the world. If you add up just their wealth, it's about $6 trillion. Measured against the GDP of nations, they alone would rank as the 3rd largest economy in the world, larger than France and the UK combined. And now
I've got a question for you in the comment section. Would you actually want to be that rich? I genuinely feel like the majority of people just want to be able to take care of the family and be able to pay bills. That's pretty much it. Freedom of their own time. But being this rich, it almost seems pointless. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below, obviously. Let me know. Smash the like button while you're there as well.
Larger than France and the UK combined.
Crazy.
And now we return to Elon Musk. As we know, Elon is currently head of the pack. But I have my suspicions.
Me too.
Before we get to those suspicions, however, you should know that most of these tech billionaires have actually made their fortunes by harvesting and selling your data. You thought it was free? Joke's on you, they're rich now. That's why I use today's sponsor. We've seen the mirage caused by inflation, and I reckon the farther back in history we go, the more chance we'll have to find someone with the wealth we need to surpass that of Elon's. So I've been compiling a lineup of suspects across all of human history that I believe can give Elon a run for his literal money. First up is the richest man of the Y2K era, Bill Gates. In 1999, Gates' wealth peaked at $100 billion. Adjusted for inflation, that's $194 billion today. Now sure, that's not even half of Elon's peak, but this was based on the value of his 20% stake in Microsoft at that time. A value that has very much grown. So much so that if he held on to that stock and didn't sell it trying to cure malaria, he'd be worth approximately $1.2 trillion. Priorities, Bill! Get him out of here.
This is a
Our next suspect
video,
is John D. Rockefeller, the richest of the so-called robber barons of the Gilded Age. His company, Standard Oil, controlled 90% of all oil production in the US by 1900. Rockefeller's domination over oil led to the landmark Supreme Court ruling that Standard Oil should be broken up into 36 companies. You've probably heard of some of them. ExxonMobil and Chevron, ring any bells? But because Rockefeller retained equity in all of these new companies, he grew even richer after the breakup. In 1916, newspapers around the world heralded that John D. Rockefeller had become the world's first billionaire. Adjusted for inflation, the world's first billion would only be about 31 billion today. That doesn't even put him in the top 50 worldwide. But what if we take into account Rockefeller's proportional wealth? Rockefeller's fortune made up about 1.5% of the US's total GDP at the time, which is about the same percentage as Musk when compared to the GDP of the US today. So contextually, you could say that Rockefeller and Musk are equally wealthy. John, go stand with Elon. For now. Our next suspect is one John Jacob Astor. John Jacob Astor was the first American multi-millionaire. He immigrated to the US from Germany just after the Revolutionary War as the US economy expanded. Astor built a monopoly over the lucrative fur trading industry, and also, it says here, smuggling opium into China. Yikes. A US senator joked that 1 in every $100 went to lining Astor's pockets. Astor's wealth at his death was an estimated $20 million, which is pretty crazy for 1848. What is that adjusted for inflation? Well, the Consumer Price Index, which we use to calculate inflation, wasn't even created until 1913. So let's stay looking at percentage of US GDP. Astor was only able to reach a measly 1.2%, far below that of Musk and Rockefeller. Astor, get your fur coats and get out!
It's very
now,
engaging.
this next guy is one rich fugger. His name's Jacob. Jacob Fugger. In 15th century Augsburg, Germany, they called him Fugger the Rich, which was a very accurate nickname. He was born into a wealthy merchant family and expanded that fortune into a monopoly on copper, which was an essential ingredient in the barrels of cannons and pistols. Indeed, Fugger controlled upwards of 40% of all the copper in Europe. But Fugger didn't just make money off the weapons of war, he also made money bankrolling the wars themselves, as he loaned cash to rulers around Europe to gain even more rights over mining. His fortune was valued at about 2 million guilders, a gold coin in use at the time. What that is in USD is hard to say, but we can measure Fugger's wealth to be about 2% of Europe's entire GDP at the time. That is the equivalent of 400 billion USD today. It's a rough estimate, but Fugger certainly fits the bill. But Fugger?
He's a mother.
Now this lineup would be incomplete if we didn't bring in this next suspect. He's considered by some historians to be the richest man in history. Malian Emperor Mansa Musa. His kingdom supposedly held half the world's gold reserves in the 12th century. And Mansa Musa was generous in throwing that gold around. In fact, when Mansa Musa traveled through Egypt, he managed to destabilize the economy for a decade just by the sheer amount of gold he handed out. Here's the problem though. Musa was the emperor. While he might have had the mandate of heaven, there were still political strings attached to this gold. Strings that the fortunes we've been discussing simply don't have. We're looking for privately held wealth. That means no kings, no dictators, and no emperors. Which means we're also ruling out Julius Caesar, who also had an immensely powerful purse. Most of the wealth under his control came from his military conquests, but it was first and foremost property of the Roman state. In fact, Caesar was often deep in debt and found himself seeking the patronage of the true richest man in Rome, Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus made his money in Roman real estate, and in a pretty shady manner at that. He owned a private fire brigade, and it was said that Crassus and his crew would show up to burning buildings and offer an ultimatum. Either the owners sell to him at an exorbitant discount, or the fire would continue to burn. He'd then rebuild the structure with slave labor. Yeah, he was also a big fan of slavery. You know the classic movie Spartacus?
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
About a slave uprising? Yeah, Crassus is the bad guy.
I'm Marcus Licinius Crassus.
Crassus met his demise after being captured by the Parthians, where they poured molten gold down his throat. Roman historian Pliny the Elder said that he was worth about 200 million Roman sesterces. This would make Crassus' share of Roman GDP anywhere from 1.2 to 2%. He is wealthy, I gotta give him that. Go on then, Crassus, get in there, you dirty little beast.
You know name. I don't like slavery.
You don't?
Nope.
Hot take. So, we have some extremely wealthy men here, but how do we meaningfully compare their very different fortunes when there's $1913, guilders, and sesterces? We know we can't calculate inflation this deep into the past, so what about percentage of total GDP? That at least takes into account the historical context, but there's a core problem. GDP, or gross domestic product, is the bundle of stuff that we make every year. But as we travel back in time, that bundle of stuff starts to look completely different. Let me explain.
Before he explains, I wonder if there's now, due to the AI uprising sort of thing, if there's a website, AI website, that allows you to enter in the amount that you have wealth-wise, and it gives you an image of what it looks like amount-wise compared to a human. So you can see the ratio. So you can see basically what your physical wealth or cash current state looks like compared to a human being. I think that would be pretty cool. If that doesn't exist, I might end up having to create it, you know, estimatemywealth.com or something like that, or visualizemywealth.com. Let me know in the comment section down below if you vibe with a comment like that, and then it allows you to keep tracking it, see when, you know, the more money you keep adding. I think that would be very cool.
If I were to offer you one of these two items, which one would you choose? My guess is you'd probably pick the phone. For most people, this is the most valuable thing they own. It contains all of the knowledge of human history. It connects you to your loved ones and tells you how to get to work, even though you've been driving there every day, the same route, for 4 years. I know you do it too. Don't judge. But now put on your toga. We're in ancient Rome, where there's no internet, no cell towers, and maps look like this. To you, this is nothing but a shiny brick. It serves no purpose, and therefore has no value. But this ice, it's a rare luxury, carried from the peak of a mountain in the dead of winter. Ice was far more valuable before the advent of refrigeration, far more valuable than a shiny, useless brick. So it seems that wealth can't simply be measured by the stuff you can buy, because the value, availability, and even the existence of that stuff varies so greatly over time. So if we can't use percentage of GDP, how do we fairly measure someone's true wealth? Well, why don't we ask our wealthy suspects?
I mean, there's like some old quote that from, was it Crassus, or that you're not really rich unless you can afford a legion?
A man is not rich unless he can raise a legion at his own expense. It's a sentiment echoed by the granddaddy of modern economics, Adam Smith. In The Wealth of Nations, Smith defined wealth as the quantity of labor which someone can command. So then all we have to do to make a meaningful comparison between these four men...
Wait. Before we make a meaningful comparison to all these four men, I think Elon Musk is actually doing what he just said. God knows how far back ago when he said this. But if you think about Optimus, the robots that he's creating, that is literally raising a legion of machine, which is even worse than humans. Wow. There's power behind words.
So then
yes?
all we have to do to make a meaningful comparison between these four men is to figure out how many humans they could hire indefinitely. Or as Crassus put it, how many legions can they raise? We'll have all of their armies meet here in Central Park, in full view of New York's Billionaires Row. Let's start with Crassus himself. How big could his army be? Well, we know the average Roman made about 300 sesterces a year. What about Crassus? How much did he make every year? Well, if we take his giant pile of 200 million sesterces and assume he can make a pretty standard 6% interest on his fortune year over year, then we can surmise that Crassus makes about 12 million sesterces a year as income. Now let's take that income and see how many Romans Crassus can hire. Crassus could conscript about 40,000 men, which is roughly the same amount of legionnaires that he led into Parthia. That's a lot of people, and that's not even touching his fortune. That's from the interest on his fortune. And we can apply this same equation to our other wealthy magnates. What about Jacob Fugger? What kind of army could he raise in Germany? Well, labor in Europe during his time was quite a bit more valuable. That's because the bubonic plague had killed up to 60% of the population of Europe. Surviving laborers therefore had increased bargaining power. The average worker in his region of Germany made the equivalent of 20 guilders a year. If we assume Fugger was making a little over 120,000 guilders a year, he could only hire 6,097 Germans. That's basically a single Roman legion. Crassus has a...
Oh my days, look at this, the comparison in size. And the first one right there that we're seeing here, Crassus, whatever, when you hear somebody say they've got 40,000 subscribers, that's how many people. Crazy.
Back to the breadlines, Fugger. Just feels good to say that. Now let's see how many Americans Rockefeller can field. The average worker's annual income was $403 in 1913. Assuming Rockefeller's income of $84 million, he could afford to hire 208,437 Americans, 41 Roman legions. That's more than the Roman Empire had at its height. Crassus just got rocked. So now for the big question. Is Rockefeller wealthier than Elon? The average annual income of an American in 2025 is $62,192. If Elon can muster just 6% of his net worth a year, that's still $29 billion, meaning he can lead 94 legions into the field of battle. The 468,871 musketeers.
This is a funny, engaging, entertaining video.
Just go, John. Just go.
Look at the trousers. He's sagging. He's an OG.
But wait a minute. With this labor metric, we thought a lot about time, but what about place? Of the wealthiest individuals in the world, the top 17 are either from the US or Europe, where median income is much higher than the rest of the world. But developing countries, they're a different story. And that brings us to the wealthiest man in India, Mukesh Ambani. You want to know how rich this guy is? Ambani's home is the most expensive private residence in the world at $4 billion. It's 27 stories with 9 elevators, 3 helipads, 168-car garage, and for when the AC just won't cut it, a snow room that freaking snows, man.
That's
His son's
crazy.
wedding, which lasted over a month, cause why not, cost more than RDJ's entire net worth. With a fortune of $106 billion, one assumes that Ambani has nowhere near the wealth of Musk. But Elon is a US citizen, and Ambani is Indian. The average annual income in India is just $4,186, 15 times less than in the United States. This means Ambani's army wouldn't even fit within the bounds of Central Park. You'd need an extra square mile just to fit his 300 Roman legions. A private army larger than India's current standing military. Over 1.5 million people shaking the very foundations of the earth itself.
This channel, this is crazy. This channel has 6.9 million subscribers. That's what 1.5 million people look like.
Permanently bound to their new overlord, the wealthiest man who ever lived. So yeah, I guess it's this guy. What would you do with this kind of wealth? Would you try to make the world?
Let's see the comment section, please. This was one of the best videos I've watched this year. I can't even lie about that. Always remember the difference between a million and a billion is about a billion. Crazy. I adore how Wen's true scale always have this tone of wonder, like a science teacher wanting to share the wonders of the universe with you, and Jordan's have this hilarious undertone of match. Okay, he's just talking about that. I want comments about the video. Life's good when you open YouTube and see new okay, that's a good comment. Like that. Jordan starting silently, just that's fine. Jordan unhinged. I just want to say the VPN does not stop third party. Okay, so it's all a bunch of good comments. The rare but amazing Jordan. Yeah, these this, to be honest with you, this is a finance channel, and we're working on fixing our money. If you're in debt, obviously getting out of it. But this really just puts into scale where you're heading to, you know. And I'll be comfortable. I think most people will be comfortable with when he was in the room. Most people will be comfortable with not that. That's the tower. Yes.
$1 billion earners.
Go back.
Look at that.
I think most people will be okay with that bed. You see that bed right there? Yeah, most people will be okay with that.
Stage
I think that's what was that, 1 million?
Oh, is about 192,000.
192,000. I think most people will be okay with having that at the bank account and then just living a free life where they're not fully controlled. But unfortunately, due to inflation, we're now living in a world where that might not cut it anymore. It might be too small. Hence to why people want more. Not because they want more, but because they technically need more. Almost. Cost of living, inflation. You see what I mean? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. God bless.